welcome to Parashas Korach. This is a bit of a depressing class. If you look at the date this class will be posted to the internet, you'll see that there was a tragedy in Israel. So this is dedicated for the Eloi Neshamas in Schus Gula Shlema of Ayel, Gilad Mechoyel, and Yaakov Naftali, B'nai Rachel. May we see the redemption soon, very soon. Alright. With that said, events and everything transpiring, pardon me if I look at my notes more this class. Alright, that's the way it is this time. The introduction is as follows. We're going to cover the following topics in any order. The ancients, right? We've talked about the covenant of the ancients, pre-Sinai Torah, going back to Adam, Seth, Enoch, Noah, Shem, building up into Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the tribes, coming into Egypt, the creation of Israel, with the mission of having placed upon her the covenant of the ancients in order to bring out Israel to be a light to the nations. And this covenant of the ancients we put on them as if to illuminate for the world the ancients. How that comes to be a function necessary basically is the ger. And in a more literary sense, the nation of Israel in the end of days will be charged with the task of telling the greatest story that was never told. And that is the level of not Mashiach, but Goel, the Redeemer. Right? What is the Torah about? What is the underlying premise? Who was who? Right now we've come 4,000 some years later, and the world wants its purpose. They want to know who was who. Right? Who is a Jew? What is a ger? Who were the prophets? What was not a prophet? And Israel in the end will basically tell that story. And a major part of that story should be obvious by now. Shem in the Torah of Shem, and basically the greatness of the ancients that make up the prophetic realm that is encapsulated in the Torah of Moses. So there's the Torah of Shem. And we have the concept of the chosen. And what I liked about this article is I was a bit deceptive. Right? I wrote it to sound as Jewish as possible. Right? And then there's the term of the chosen people. Right? And the twist is that's my favorite part of the article. I'll just jump to the end of my notes, right, for the introduction. The twist is that the chosen represents in the article the Noahide ger, right? That was what the staff budding almonds is about. Is chosen needs redetermined, re-understood, put in proper context. Aaron's staff is going to blossom, and we're going to look at that as a fractal of the Torah of Shem, B, a timeless piece, C, a revelation of priestly light in a way that can be used then and in our time now, which, as it's used in this case, it's a ger function. And that's what I liked most about this article, is it was really the best of both worlds, and it makes a great harmony. Which our arena of discussion is the 1960s. Right? And we're going to show how that ties in with the concept of the staffs, the idea of the first generations of exile with the last generations of exile, under the concept, the first Redeemer, so is the last Redeemer. Right? The first Moses of the desert, and as is told Moses, Messiah, that there will be the end of times, when basically all of our old friends will come back through Gilgal, reincarnation, not the way that we've been taught what reincarnation is. It's not one guy dies and then he pops up tomorrow in a new body. It's much deeper than that. It's more that God recreates history over and over and over again. We play the parts of previous generations. But it doesn't, that's not only the part. Everybody on earth replays these parts all the time. Even in one, it's like a divine multiple personality, right? Because reality is only Torah. So if you understand the Torah and you get into the language and the mazel and the divine providence that you live, you can identify the Torah that you live. But you're still you. That's the greatness. You're still you, but the divinity that you swim in is the Torah reality. And the Torah then is the instruction of how to understand reality. Right? The Ger Noahide, and how everything comes under the category Kohen, priest. All right. First question is, based on the nature of the article and Parsha being Korach. If we're going to discuss the covenant of the ancients, the first thing we need to do is discuss the ancients. Right? That should be obvious. And in our Parsha, it really is almost entirely a story. I mean, when's the last time we saw really a literary story? I mean, usually the style's different. Even, the last couple of Parshas, when this happened and Jethro came back, for example, or there were prophets in the camp, people were complaining, but it's still kind of superimposed upon you, I am God talking to you. This is not God. This is the people, and they're acting, and it's Moses talking to Korach. And only when God is called upon by Moses saying, hey, you need to figure out what's going on and save the Torah, God intervenes. But right away again, it goes back into the characters. So we're very much on the field in this one. We're very much in real time. And I think you probably know more about Korach than anybody else in the Torah. Whereas we're right there with the guy. Right? We know what he's doing, you get a sense of the nature of him. And I'll tell you what it is. I just realized this now. There's no mythology with Korach. With Bilam, you're going to say, oh, that guy whose eyeballs hanging out of his head. Right? And with Haman, we have images of Purim and little kids with their masks. Oh, you wicked Haman. And every antagonist, we have this mythology. In the way we view the reality. I mean, who's another one? Dasan Aviram. They're the conniving enemies, and Pharaoh, and there's meaning to that. It's not just an accident that it's in a grandiose fashion in the way the literary tale. But with Korach, he is a guy. He is a real guy with real pluses and minuses and strength, and you see his claim. You see his personality, and he brings out Moses' character too. And you see Aaron, who he is. You're seeing the humanity of Torah here. And then, the people are saying, what's going on? We're going to die too. And God reassures. Even God is God in this parsha. Even with the miracle, the land opening up, you see God as being God. It's not so much, God of, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this with He just does it. Real time, God just does it. And then you are introduced to the Levium, right? And when the people are saying, how are we going to be in the Holy Temple if everyone's being killed? We're going to die there too. And God says, no, the Levi is going to be there. And if you look into it, you'll see who a Levite is. That's what's going on here. We are learning the famous Shin, four-headed Shin in this Parsha. After you read in the Parsha and meditate on it, get into it, you will know what a priest is. Forget the technical terminology. In your heart, you will know what a priest is after you experience Aaron. Once you go through Moses and the Levites, you'll know what a Levite is. Forget what you've been told. Forget the text and the Levites have this, the halacha and that and this. Look here. Right? you're going to come and complain and, God wasn't fair, and why did I have to do this, and why do I have to bring my offering to the temple? And what makes it possible is the Levite is there to say, hey, I hear you. Right? He is the reinforcement of the courtyard. All these people in there, and there's goats and cows and whatever it is, shechting and blood and offerings, but the Levite is the voice of reason. He's the voice of really the divine coming down. He really is that divine providence. That's the Levite. He's for the people, with the people, but he's appointed by God. You get a sense of the Israelites here. They're a bit timid. They don't want to die. They want the truth. And you get a sense of the Ger. Right? The Ger is he's either the best guy around, or he's complaining, or he's this and that. He's a rainbow. Pardon the cliche. They say the Gerim come from the era of Rav. Meaning he could be a bad guy, he could be the best guy, maybe he'll convert, maybe he won't, maybe he's a Ger Tzedek. He's a lot of things. And we see that in the Parsha. And that's all 4 vavs of the Shin, the 4-headed Shin. We see everything here. We see the humanity of the characters. Take a time out from the mythology of Torah, and, we're setting up the big repair of the world, and this is why we were created, and the heavens and the earth came to testify. Hold on a second. I know it's true, but we're saying, Korach, let's just get on earth for a minute. Let's see who we are on earth. Forget about our angelic self and what we strive to be and how we battle the heavens and ascend with Silas and we emulate the Kabbalah. Right? Just be you. And that's what this Parsha is. Just be you. And with that focus, that's the scope of the article. This whole article, I might even break protocol in my notes. I just want to go freestyle on this one. The article is about just being you. Right? We have the Parsha, and we say, okay, here's the ancients, here's who they were. And now Israel's going to go through exile and portray these ancients. And Israel doesn't know what that is. Not thousands of years ago. And you see, they didn't know. They go through exile. Well, it was me, I'm Jewish. And you go through the 4 exiles. You get beat up, people destroyed, kicked out of your land, come back, kicked out again. 2,000 years of Messiah. Some say he came then. Jews say we're still waiting for him. And it's a contradiction between the world religions that were created at that time. And at that time, it was the big Ger explosion. But it was not ready to come down yet. Why? They were still being raw. People were being people. And it was a little bit shocking. The Jews were saying, we're Jews. The Ger were saying, okay, we're ready to be Ger. For the first time since the Exodus. And so there was some intermarriage going on, some hatred, some Karaites, some Apikoros, heresy, future Judaism, future heresy, foreign religions, going back to paganism. People were being raw and real. And that continued for 2,000 years. The Jew was basically meek, just like here in our Parsha. Are we going to die? Do we get to live? Can I just learn Torah? I mean, this is what it is. We say Moses reincarnates every generation. And you see that's basically what kept everything alive. Every generation you get a little burst of light, of revelation and novelli, keeping the story going. Providing material to tell the story for the end. So you have your Moses, you're going to have your Korachs, you have your Jews, you have your Gerim, you have God. And with a keen eye, you can see God. A lot of things in history, you can see God's providence. And especially the big build-up, the Holocaust, World War II. If you want to see God, go look over there. The only one we don't know about is Aaron. And again, he's the guy in the corner in our Parsha. I don't know where he is or what he's doing. All we know about Aaron is we say, what's your beef with Aaron? Moses is the Korach. What's your deal with Aaron? But yeah, I just said 5 minutes ago, we do know Aaron. And we do. Staff blossomed. He's in the background. He's not meek. So we know him on one hand, but Why is it we don't know him? We do, we don't, we do, we don't. That's what this is about. That's exactly what this is about. Let's say we have the Torah of Moses, the Torah of Korach, Torah of Dasan of Abiram, all these characters, and we're saying, is there a Torah of Shem that comes through here? I'm just throwing that out randomly, but could we fathom such a thing? We have all the characters. Could it be that Aaron is the main guy? And we find out he is. His staff blossoms. So that we have in the Parsha the Chomer to understand this. Chomer means the substance. And it's like tohu, it's chaos. The Parsha, it really needs stretched out and refined. That's what Torah is. It comes down in like mountaintops of revelation. Right? The Torah of the revelation. Imagine, like, here my hand is from here downwards. There's a little tip revealed, like a mountaintop. Underneath, there's a whole revelation. So we have the Moseses and the Korach, little tips when we say these characters. Interesting dynamic. They're a bit real, but when you pull your hand away, you reveal underneath the whole mountain. Or if it's a volcano, underneath, right, the cone upside down. You see there's a whole world of action going on. Not simple stuff. And by stretching that over time, through Jewish history, Torah history, we can really understand these characters. By getting a historical view of Korach, Moses, Aaron, everyone we said, even God. Maybe society, mankind needed God over, how many thousands of years? Basically 3,300 years. To get a glimpse of how God operates. And we got a big glimpse of it. 1948. Or if you want to back up even a little bit, just research this tonight. Right? There was 6 a.m. on the paradigm clock. 6 days of creation, 6,000 years, 1,000 each day. 5,500 on the Jewish calendar, 1739 in the secular calendar. The light of redemption starts at 6 a.m. on the paradigm clock, 24-hour day, 12 and 12 hours, day and night. Vilna Gaon, Baal Shem Tov, all of our superstars of recent memory coming about at 6 a.m. Zionism is born. 6 a.m. It's called Sionit Groit, Zionism of the Vilna Gaon. You have the religious faction and the Rothschilds are developed at the exact same time. So the physicality comes down to finance and support the Vilna Gaon's vision. Vilna Gaon's not alone. He's going to come to your holy city of Sfat with, not him personally, but his students, with your favorite people on earth, the Lubavitchers. And you're going to say that they hate each other and they probably threw peanuts at each other. Actually, the Vilna Gaon says they got along quite well. Vilna Gaon says that the Alter Rebbe was a tremendous scholar and they were actually quite friendly. The point is that to remain friends outside the land is counterproductive. Right? So they need to be friends in the land. The point is pushing everyone to the land. So if you chum up out, in Ukraine in 1740, that's not what they were on about. Fast forward 100 years, that in the year 5500 to 5600, the well springs of heaven and earth will be opened according to the Zohar. Every pundit says that was achieved with the Industrial Revolution. Well springs of heaven and physicality and spirituality. As I said, Vilna Gaon, all those guys. Judaism today, Torah today, which perforce means Ger today, Noahide today, came from those guys. And if you're not paying attention, Lubavitch was probably the biggest innovator in Noahide, and that was formulated in that era with the Alter Rebbe and Baal Shem Tov. The Industrial Revolution came down at that time too, so it was achieved. Now you're going to come out of that 100 years, and you're going to find two characters that are extremely important to this idea. Let's call it 3 characters, right? 2 you probably know, and 1 you never heard of. 1 is Theodor Herzl. Zionism is going to be born coming out of these 100 years, shortly after. Rockefeller, total ace of mentality of world dominion, right? The Roman Empire back in full force in a very capitalist way. And I found this tonight. I'm bringing this in. George Bush's Alter Zadie from 1844. His name was George Bush. Wrote a book. And I downloaded it tonight and read through it. Amazing book. He explains the church's reformat to right-wing Christianity to put Jews in the land, to formulate, before Herzl, mind you, the first Zionism. That the Jewish lobby was created from this book. It's called Ezekiel's Vision, or about Ezekiel's bones that come back to life. And what he taught through Bible exegesis was, stop looking at the Bible metaphorically, like Bilam's eyeball hanging out that we're talking about, and view it humanity that we're talking now. He said maybe what Ezekiel's on about is the Jews really need to get on the land. Now, I'm not advocating what his Christian ideas. What I'm saying is this guy invented modern Zionism because they predicted all the things that were going to happen. I read the book, 1844. In Herzl, now where he gets his views of Zionism, I don't know. All I know is that you have Edom today supporting Israel, making the Jews be here, and we can look back that indoctrination it's an agenda. It's an agenda for their own beliefs. And Herzl was not the most religious guy in the world. He has his own agenda. Answering the Jewish problem, put them in the land. And if you look at Europe pre-World War II, a lot of the funding out of the money backers of Germany were funding a lot of things that basically filtered into Israel. So by the time you have the Holocaust, and you're going to drop a bomb on Hiroshima, and you're going to kill how many millions of Soviets? How many people died by Stalin? He killed what? A lot.
16 million.
How many?
16 million.
16? That's a lot. So you have Russia decimated, Japan, Jews, Europe is destroyed. Every culture got a bomb on their head, right? Maybe not in sheer numbers, but the world stopped when those bombs fell and those gas chambers operated, right? For everybody. And out of this comes the state of Israel. I mean, look at this historical view I'm saying, right? We had, the movement at the end of the Second Temple. Yashka comes with the whole Ger movement. It's not the right time. There's intermarriage. It's volatile, hostile, horrible. I mean, every Avodah Zarah came out of that. The Karaites. I mean, every religion and everything just went chaos. They all went their separate ways. I hate you. I hate you. Everyone was at each other's throats. The Crusades, blood. I mean, it was a religious. And then you culminate in this era of enlightenment of the sixth day of creation, 1740. Right, Judaism has a revival. Right, the Christian church rearms itself with a new theology. Right, instead of Catholicism, it's called Christianity, evangelical train of thought. Islam's going to come into the scene eventually with their whole oil thing. So you're looking at a retooled new world for the end. So now all that comes into the category of Zionism. Each one for his own selfish gains. Right? It's our land after 2,000 years. We're here. We have the oil and we're in charge. And we're going to take your oil and we're in charge. So Esav, Yishmael, and Yaakov running around just like they were 2,000 years ago. I heard a very interesting story during the war in 2006. The Talmud describes three main nations in the world, Jacob, Ishmael, and Esav. And if you were 2,000 years ago to put 70 balls in a box, including, three of them are Esav, Jacob, and Ishmael, and say, okay, pick out three balls, and what are the chances of it? It's exactly those three nations. Meaning, if we have 70 nations, and we say, of all those 70, what are the chances of the Torah's three surviving in the end of days and being the star? And then being so confident to write it down, make a theology about it, and believe in it. And it happens. That's like saying, in the year 7,000, I think these three nations are going to be activated. In the year 7,000 in the Jewish year. Right? In the year 2200, I can predict what's going to happen. That's insane. But they did. And lo and behold, who's running the world right now in the news? Jacob, Ishmael, and Esau. It happened. And by that, you can look at each section and they can all say, well, I'm here, and there's a reason. I'm here, and there's a reason. I'm here, and there's a reason. So they all continue with their agenda saying, we have reason to be here. Okay, then you have the whole World War II kind of say, whatever's building up, because it built up. And they all blow up, and everyone stops in their tracks, the dust settles, and there's a state of Israel, 1948. Out of nowhere. Right? All the elements came together. Herzl's thing came in. This George Bush thing came in. The Arab thing was utilizing that vision. And all of a sudden, everyone now is looking pretty good. Arabs have the money going, the oil, Jews run their land, and Adam's running the show. So far, so good. We haven't really gotten anywhere. There's no real progression. Right? Everyone still has their complaints on every group. We're in exile of Rome. The Jews aren't being led to the nations. And Yisrael's hand is on everybody else's stuff. No one's achieved anything good. We're right back at the destruction of the Second Temple. And now the Jews are on the land. And it seems kind of miraculous. But yet it happens within nature. So that whole realignment in Asaph about putting the Jews in the land, and the whole question of the book was, did it happen after Babylon, or will it happen in the future? It just happened, 1948. And by nature, not this miraculous, God, thundering. It happened in the way of man. So now they're pumped up saying, where's this going to go? The Jews are saying, hey, we made it back to our land, despite what the Satmar Rebbe said. And the Arabs are saying, well, you got to come to us for oil, so we're looking pretty good too. Which effectively begins the exile of Ishmael. And 70 years ago was the duration of what the Chafetz Chaim said, the end of days will take 70 years. And we're right there. Right? Gog v'Magog, 70 years. So World War II kills all the people, and now comes this moral challenge of really finishing the job of being a light to nations, what the Torah is about, telling that story. And we're all trying to get to the point of what's the story. Fast forward again. 1960s. And that's where we're going to focus in the article. After World War II, you have the 50s, right? Everyone's happy. Physicality is booming. Capitalism's wonderful. Everything is great, right? And then all of a sudden the 60s come, and what happened? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Right? I was out there, but it was a time. And all through history, you have special times. Aside from the religious story, the philosophy of Greece, what was that? Why were they so into how do they know the philosophy? The biblical times. Why were they so into knowing God? Every so often, the Renaissance. Why were they so great at their artwork and innovative thinking? The Egyptians, how did they get the pyramids built and moving the rocks? So every so often you get this burst, and you're saying, what is that? It's well beyond exponentially great in proportion to, let's say, regular mankind. And the 60s were that. I mean, the characters that came out of Rome in the 60s, Jim Morrison, The Doors, Rolling Stones, all the music, John Lennon, politics, JFK. Who else was there? NASA, right? And they're going in space exploration. Martin Luther King. And Joe Namath. Right? So I mean, you had it was a very colorful, dynamic time, transcending so many things. And the thing is that the eyeball wants to identify with the physical world. Right? God wants you to understand there are heavens beyond. It says in the fourth day of creation, I placed the heavens in the sky for you to see for signs of times. And people's faith dwindled. And I want to see what Mars looks like. So, spacecraft are invented, NASA comes around, and now we have pictures of Mars. Okay, you happy, Rabbi? That's what Mars looks like. We did it. Now you can see it with your eyes. And we like to see things. We don't want to use our imagination and imagine what a Kruv is, an angelic man. I want to see it on TV. And you see, it functions this way in the yeshivas too. When the Matrix movies came out, rabbis are teaching the Matrix to show Torah concepts. It's just, the visual makes it happen. We can't help but to see our reality, Jewish or not Jewish, Torah or not Jewish, whatever it is. We want to see greatness in the world. Even if it's an analogy that allows us to fathom God is great in the world. You know, Klippa versus Kedusha. The non-holy versus the holy. And that's exactly what Korach is about. We have not had holiness come down yet. Remember, Torah just happened. Sinai just happened. We've been religious for what, a week? You know, it's all brand new. So, Korach is saying that holiness, we're all holy, we're all the same. But after the Parashas is over, we learn a valuable lesson. We understand what is holy. Right? God says the fire pans that they did, put those on the altar, that's holy. There's now holy and the mundane. There's now, let's say, the children of Israel, the four-headed shin, those with God, and those not with God. And they don't mix. The idolater's not part of Israel yet. Fast forward again into our 60s. We know something's there. It has to be. There's something there. But what is it? Is it true? Is it good? Because it wasn't the music. It was the ideology behind the music. Today is the music. Right? We love the sound of music today, but there's no ideology. Right? Rock and roll today is just blah, blah. There's no lyrics. You cannot compare today to Bob Dylan. Impossible. I personally don't like the sound of the 60s. Right? I think the music was horrible compared to today, because I'm born in 1978, growing up as a 90s kid. But I certainly do not get into James Hetfield's ideology of the reality from Metallica. What we listened to in high school. It was not an ideological thing. It was about wrestling practice going, But listening on YouTube to interviews with John Lennon is interesting. Forget Tuma. It's interesting. He's an interesting guy. And hearing their ideas. So there was a light that came down. There was a bona fide light that came. You have to say that. So, just listen to JFK's speeches. It sounds just like Obama's, meaning we have entered a new era, and he was right. And in case you forgot, 1967 happened, and that is a new era. If they tear down that mosque in 1967, which was about this far away from happening, Islam is over. Finished. And you're basically going to have the Messiah come. No question. And God held it back, for whatever reason. 67 then validates 48. Right? You want the open revealed hand of God? And the miracles? Because everyone's now saying, okay, the Jews are in the land, but no miracles. No, we want just, nature and convert them, it says. But now God says, wait a minute, I'm going to give you some miracles now. And now that validates 48. And there's a rash in the world, a ruckus. But there's a lot of things, a big ruckus. There's a go to a Jim Morrison concert, you get a ruckus too. Right? Go watch a Beatles show. A lot of ruckus going on. Cuban Missile Crisis. There's a lot of things going on. And how do we identify which one is right? Because again, it's not, one of them's got to be right. Is it politics? Is it ideology? Humanity and racism? Sports? Where's our genre? It's not for the people, it's the genre. Where do I focus my energy on? Even if I know, okay, I gotta go Torah and God only and don't be involved in the world, but we are human and your body reacts. You see, you feel, you connect. Inspiration. So the light came down, but the vessel is impure. So if you put an impure vessel on light, you're going to spread a great impurity. It'll be a burst of light, but it'll burn out. And the 60s produced a tremendous high. And in 2014, has there ever been a greater low in world history than what we have now based on that fallout? Right? Everyone knows that if you eat a bunch of sugar, you'll go straight to the moon. But you'll crash, like a dog. And that's what happened. So the Tshuva movement came out of that. Zalman and I were talking tonight, the 3 or 4 rabbis that came out of that era that created Bali Tshuva. And all of basically Torah today comes from that time. Because those people saw miracles, light, God, inspiration, ideology, hope, faith. And a lot of people came back to God. And they're still looking. And living on that inspiration of when they were younger. That's the generation that's coming like the end of the wilderness, trying to get back into the land of Israel, metaphorically. But they're stuck. Where is the light? It's like a wall. I've come this far. Now what? Now what? I mean, these people have stopped being creative since the time of creativity. They've lived out and rehashed that same inspiration over and over and over again. And these were creative people. So why are they being creative now? Why is the Torah more static than ever? Zero dynamic to the Torah. None. No. Now let's take another flashback. Korach and Moshe. What was going on? Miriam just got Saras a couple Parashas ago. Aaron is outside the camp with her, with the concept of outside the camp is the Ger and Mashiach, and they both are called Mitzorah but Saras. And you go to the Kohen, and basically Moses comes and saves the day. He's the big Kohen here, because remember Moses is also a Kohen. It says Hashem kill na rafonallah, heal her now. She's healed. So Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, the family of Amram, put together a little exhibit of how to heal Saras. Way to go. Only there's another problem. 7 laws of Noah mean you take on Saras. Right? That's the real biblical Noahide laws. It means you are subject to impurity, which is why the waters of Mara, the paraduma, red heifer ashes, were given to the Ger, because they're going to become impure due to the fact that they're in touch with their soul, and now they're going to be just as impure as Jews. When they contract impurity and need the red heifer, there'll be a portion for them in the temple. Everything, all the way. Most people don't realize that, but the Ger is subject to the paraduma, impurity in the temple, just like Jews. That's why it's the 4th house of Israel. So now Korah's going to come and say, hey, what is this? You're stepping on my toes. I am the Kohen for the Ger. Just like Elisha brought Naaman into the Jordan, healed his Saras that he got by being a Ger, says the Midrash, and healed him. Only Elisha had a bad guy with him, Gehazi, who wanted to rip off Naaman. And he lost his world to come portion because of it. Fast forward, or go backwards to Korach. He says, I'm me and my Levitical crew and the firstborn who are like the priests. That's our job, Moses, to take care of Saras. for like strange cases. Why are you stepping on toes? Yes, Miriam may have been an exceptional case in your sister, but I think you're trying to take it away. And we're all holy. Gerim, we're holy. What do you think it is to get Saras? That's holiness. They're holy too. And God says, if my spirit should be upon them, they will prophesy as well. So why are you holding yourself into esteem? There's like 20 billion Gerim, right? The whole world is potentially Ger, and there's 15 million Jews at max. And you think that your numbers are going to take over the Mishkan, the tabernacle? We have rights here. Your hours are like 1 to 2 p.m. every day. We get the rest of the time. Moses realized, no. That's not how it works. I have every right to step into the place as the main Kohen here. Right? Moses was not the Kohen Gadol over Aaron. But Moses is saying, I am the Kohen. Right? In conceptual terms. Because Korach is saying, I'm the Kohen in conceptual terms. I know Aaron does it for whatever with the Jews, but I'm the real Kohen. Moses says, no, I am the real Kohen. And God will prove it. God proves it. Holiness comes down. And what do we learn? That we are not equal in this world. There is a caste system in the Torah. There is inequality. Aaron is the highest. He is the Kohen, the priest. Then there's the Levite, and then the Israelite, and then the Ger. The Midrash has a whole list of who is the pecking order, not of greatness and I'm better than you, of holiness. Right? In Kabbalah, the man is Chachma, wisdom, the woman is Bina, understanding. He is higher. Why? Because he is. Does that mean better, greater, smarter? No. Just means there's a certain above. Yesod is above Malchus. Just is. And then it says, if you should be a Talmud Chacham and learn, so you can ascend in levels of holiness. And if I'm a holy Kohen, but a Rasha, I also can become rather impure. So in the end, it does balance out. It is equal. We are. There is that. But then there is the level of holiness. And Korach had to learn that lesson. And Moses had to step up and realize where he's holding in holiness. You know, to show his holiness wasn't easy either. And the Levites had to step up. Now, fast forward again into the 60s. Is there something holy going on there? We want to say yeah. You know, we hear the ideology, but we see the tumah and the deaths of the guys. Oh, they all died at 27, all this stuff. Was there holiness? And the answer is yes. Just like the Torah of Shem shows. Everyone says Shem sinned with Abraham with the right to the priesthood. But we know that in Kabbalah, Shem did not sin. It was a passing of light undercover. And that's the hidden light of creation. Right? Like a scrum in a rugby match. And one guy comes running out with the ball. That's Shem. That's the Torah of Shem. Shem is the priest, the Kohen L'Kelyon. We're looking for that guy. Where's the guy with the ball? Is it Jim Morrison? Was he, forget the drugs and rock and roll. Was his poetry enlightened? Was he great? JFK, okay, Marilyn Monroe and stuff, but was he really the greatest president of all time? Should we think that way? And as I wrote in the article, I want to quote this because I like the way I wrote it. Just as Aaron's staff, again, we're jumping around a little bit, but for the sake of the class, we can follow. Right? Later on in the Parashas, the staves were brought into before the Holy of Holies. Right after Korach died and Moses was vindicated, God says, "I'm going to show you once and for all who is holy, who is the chosen, all that stuff. Right? I'm going to prove to you that this is not me being sick and twisted." Aaron's staff blossoms. And we're saying, okay, we need a hero. We have all of our tribes, they failed, and we have the guys from the 60s who failed. And there was the trance that came down out on the 60s. Right? That whole impurity was a tardema, a trance, a thick cloud of sleep. If you find the end letters spell in order in the Parsha by the place where it says, the staves were put in there, in the place of meaning, it actually spells Tav Reish Daled Mem Hey, tardema. A deep sleep came on, a hypnotic trance. And we're looking in our lives for the hero. Where's the guy that's the priest of God? That the guy who stood alone, stood out, created a movement, one that'll last forever, ushering Messiah, a true ideology, lacking impurity, possessing the highest sanctity. Staff blossomed and hasn't stopped blooming. He who was chosen by God, right? Let's even call it the chosen people, make you happy, right? For all those that love controversial terms. He was a priest. He was a high priest. He sanctified God. He was human. He blended into his time. He died prematurely too. And nobody outside a gang of renegades knows who he is. He's there with all these guys that we all know and even deify in the media. And like a true priest, he was separate from the congregation and true to his beliefs. And every Korach in the world continues to scoff him. His identity grows more and more every day, and you don't know him yet, but don't worry, one day you will. Who is the guy? It's almost comical how it comes out. It's not Jim Morrison, it's not John Lennon, none of our guys from the 60s in the most recent era of enlightenment. And we all can agree that there was an enlightenment. Cultures changed emphatically. Welcome to Vendel Jones. Right? The guy, the former pastor, invents Noahide-ism. Before the Lubavitcher Rebbe, before anybody around, the word Noahide didn't exist. He invented that too. And he was right there in the 60s with all these guys, and that Torah came down, the light of Shem, and as it is always with Shem, if you tap into it, you can get into it. If your vessel is holy and pure. If you're going to put impurity over it, it'll produce impurity. He takes that light and he puts Noahidism on top of it. And in the scrum, only he comes out. And he has a partner in crime. The greatest advocate that ever lived for the Noahides to this day. Meir Kahan comes out in 67 Ward, 68, comes out and says, this is my ideology, this is the... Now, forget his politics. Go on YouTube and watch Meir Kahan speak with Vendel Jones in Texas, I think it's 1990, before he died. If he would have lived, I guarantee you, the Noahide world would have been light years beyond where they are today. If those two would have teamed up permanently. Two products of the 60s, and love or hate Meir Kahan and his views. And everyone says he's anti the non-Jew and this and that. He understood and loved what the Noahide was. As I'm going to tell you, all through his books, he's about Mashiach ben Yosef. And that is code for the greatest story that's never been told. Which is really the essence of the Ger and the Jew in cooperation in Torah. Those guys brought it out of the dust of the scrum of the 60s. And that is a fact. That is a fact. And that's your Kohen. There's your Kohen. In fact, wasn't he a Kohen? Kohen was just right there. Kohen was a Kohen. How about that first practice? A non-Jew that learns Torah is comparable to the high priest. There's your two Kohanim. There's your two. Right there. Moses, Aaron. There you go. There you go. And they blended in with all their cronies. Right? Back then, Jones is no different than Jim Morrison, all those guys. They all look the same. A little quirky, a little goofy ideology. But only one comes out. Only one survives. Only one is the hidden light. Only one was not impure and contained that pure vessel and cause. Just like the staves that go into the Holy of Holies, one blossoms. And that blossoming, which is the Gematria Mateu Yifrach, his staff will blossom, the Gematria Mashiach, which, by the way, also apropos that we're saying this, Yifrach, the last name of one of the boys that died. The illumination of the staff is also, don't read staff, read tribe. When they go in there, Aaron's tribe is illuminated. Don't just trust me that the Levium are the holy and Aaron's the priest. When they go in there, God illuminates the seed, the blood, and the mazel of Aaron, Amram, the Levite, and the story is illuminated. Aaron's story becomes the greatest story ever told. Not Reuben, not Shimon. Right? Imagine we're all going out to lunch and Reuben says, yeah, you know, I got a 10-cent discount on my tuna sandwich yesterday. And then the guy says, yeah, I got a car, I talked the guy down $5,000 at the car lot. Aaron comes up and says, well, I went to the moon. You can't compare, right? Just existentially greater. That's the Kohen. That's Mashiach. You'll know Mashiach because his story will out-trump everyone's story. Right? Stories today lack creativity and they're static. Right? And they're forcing their agenda. You know, the story is the Lubavitcher Rebbe is going to come back because I said he is. Okay, but you made that up. You're basing it on your will and desire for it to be so. Which you have that right to make that opinion, but it's very static. Maybe that's right, maybe I'm wrong, but the way I understand this is the Messiah's story, i.e. the greatest story ever that will be told, is the super dynamic story. That's Aaron, that's the Messiah, and Wendell Jones above Jim Morrison, all those guys, he had the dynamic story. If you had listened to his story, it's dynamic. It hasn't even started yet, and he's still going. Along with Meir Kahane. And that blend of Judaism in terms of the righteous Gentile. And by the way, should you ask why it's the Kohen and not Judah, refer to Psalm 110, Atah Kohen Liolam al Dibarti Melchizedek. You are a priest forever by my word Melchizedek. Moses, Korach. Impure, pure. Holy, not holy. Eyes open, eyes closed. True story, false story. The true ger, the perversion of the ger. Elisha, Gehazi. The ger then, the ger today. Nothing changed. In the 60s discussion, Wendell, Jim Morrison, impure, pure. False poetry, true poetry. Holy, not holy. The message is altruistically with God, one is not. One sounds good, looks good, one altruistically is good. The Maharal of Prague makes it very clear. Just as Miriam was outside the camp with Aaron with Saras, Moses steps up, the priest that comes out in darkness into the light. He has the rights of priesthood. He says, I'm a reincarnation of Shem. I relate to Abraham, the fulfillment of Abraham. And Aaron is a reincarnation of Haran, the brother of Abraham, says the Herzl. Moses is that Kohen light. The staff of Moses illuminates with Miriam. Right? He has the story. He can purify her. Say the prayer El Narafonallah. And we find out, because of that, Moses is the trusted one in my house more than anybody. And we didn't know that until that light was forced to come through. But we find out, God says, he's the trusted one. So again, we have our culture. All these guys, we want JFK to be the guy. And all our heroes and NASA. And we're going to go to the moon. Let's colonize Mars. We can't get along on Earth, so let's go to Mars. That's a great idea. We can go pollute it up over there too. But Vendel came through and said, let's take on the Torah. Right? Let's go back to God. Let's drop the sheker. Let's be true people. Let's be God-fearing. Let's be greater morals and ethics. You'll say, well, isn't that converting to Judaism? No! That's the point. The Bolshevik Movement tried that too. That's my point with this whole Lubavitcher Rebbe thing. The Lubavitcher Rebbe knew what was going on. But we interpreted today was we should all be Jewish and convert. The seculars say we should lose Torah altogether. Vendel had that road with in perspective with context of America Han. There are Jews and there are non-Jews. And that's not a contradiction. The righteous Gentile, Noahide Ger, is a real thing. Part of the real story. Now, should you become more or less inclined what to do with that birthright, that's up to you. The Jewish obligation of being Jewish, America Han represents those that are radical, or how they view him radical or not radical, that's up to you. But the true path of the priest came down. And we learn from it one very solid theme through all of this. There will be one Torah for the native and the ger alike. I think that statement covers all bases. And how you do it is very simple. Follow the roadmap of the Parsha. Come together and you'll figure out what this is. Very simply, the Ezrach and the ger, right? Two halves. You want to understand the whole Torah, the greatest story ever told? Put the Ezrach and the ger together and you will figure it out. If you don't know it now, one day you will. Thank you very much. Have a great week. And remember to, at this point, daven for the Eloi Neshama and the Gula Shlema for the boys. May this class and basically all of Jewish history, Torah, learning, Gerim Jews, combined schus. It says in Tehillim that in the end of days, all the cries and tears and prayers will only go up to God in the end of days. May that time be now. And as it says in Holocaust, which we'll get to next week, the king of Arad kidnapped a captive of Israel in the time of the spies. And Israel said, Hashem, if you return the captive, we make a neder to, if you deliver the enemies in our hands, we will consecrate your cities. And it was mentioned, Charma was the name of the city when it was destroyed. Judges 1:17 identifies Charma with Sfat. So, with that said, let it be known that tonight from Sfat, Am Yisrael together, whether they know it or not, they make that neder to God. Amen.